everybody, welcome to the Zach Stone Crypto channel. What you see here is something that I have known was coming for a while, but have to admit that I've been a little bit nervous to see it go mainstream. For full disclosure, I have used this. So the method I'm about to walk you through, I have done to a motherboard. But let's scroll through this just really quick here. This document, even if well prepared, contains very dangerous changes to your system's BIOS and might brick your system. And we can't really stress this enough. This is dangerous. You should only undertake this if you really know what you're doing and you're really confident in your ability to do it. Now, I believe that that's a lot of you in the Phala community, but don't come at us if this doesn't work for you. This is something that you don't feel confident in, then please have someone else do it for you, or wait for your motherboard manufacturer to make the right BIOS update available to you. This is because we are currently in a situation where we are short of Confidence 1 level miners. And the reason for this is a confluence of issues. So if you know about the Phala project, you know that we're using Intel SGX. This creates a trusted enclave for compute, and this is the key ingredient of the Phala blockchain, the ability to have privacy, to execute code and use data in private. Having the right SGX driver version is critical. Having the right SDK version is critical. These are updated pretty regularly, so those are easy to get. Having up-to-date Intel packages, this is typically already done for you via the app repository. Having an up-to-date BIOS includes the latest microcode update, and this is where we're starting to run into problems. So with microcode, what we have found over the last year is that there have been several threats, not breaches or hacks, but there have been several threats, and as such, Intel has made updates to the microcode, changes the behavior inside the CPU so that it mitigates these threats. So in addition to that, you have to have correct BIOS settings for your motherboard, and you have to have a good internet connection for attestation once all of that is up and running. But the key problem statement here is that these microcode updates have been very frequent for the last several months, and as such, manufacturers have not kept up with BIOS updates that keep up the pace of those microcode updates, even Intel, I might add. So I have several NUC devices that are out of compliance, and I'm going to show you in a different video how I've updated those. But for today, this is just a software only. This is the easy mode of BIOS hacking, if you will. ASRock has a very open system, and that makes it very easy to do this for their boards. Before doing BIOS modifications, visit your vendor's website and check if there is a BIOS update. We're going to do this first because it turns out that my board, the J4105M, does not have these, the BIOS settings for your motherboard. So it turns out that they have disabled these switches in the BIOS, and there's no way to turn SGX on. So in addition to not having the right microcode, I have this secondary problem. So what I did is I went out to their website and I raised a request. I said, hey, I have a motherboard and I can't seem to make any of these settings. Can you send me a BIOS that can? And they said yes. So how about that? Long story short, this is the BIOS that I'm going to open. So we're gonna download this, and I'm going to grab this file, copy, and we're going to go to this directory that I've got set up for it. Pop that over there. All right, so now I have the latest and greatest BIOS straight from the manufacturer, and it does not, as it turns out, you can show this. Let's extract it. It does not have the latest microcode. Okay, so I'm going to rename this as the original file, and we're going to copy this guy, to here just so that it's a little easier to do. Now, if I open this UFI tool, turns out that I can inspect this file. If I look in the BIOS, I open this guy up, I see this U code line. So this line tells me there's microcode in here. And this is U patching and Intel microcode right here. And I can get a version. Don't get too wrapped around the axle over this date. These dates I found are not very accurate. What you want are the versions and the signatures. Let's continue on with the guide first before I get too derailed here. So this explains that, about the microcode, what it is, where it lives, and that we want to update this in the BIOS. So think about your BIOS as a zip file. It contains multiple files. MCU is only a part, and I just showed that to you in the UFI tool. Okay, so here's the resources that we're going to use to do this. UFI tool I've already shown you, jumped the gun a little bit. Intel's microcode, let's open this in a new tab, and I will show you what's there. All right, so we have Intel U code, and I already have this hex editor, and we'll show you this tool package as well. All right, so first, go to the vendor's website, download the latest BIOS. We already have that. Show you where it opens. More tricky part, each BIOS is different. Finding the microcode we are looking for, which could be at any location, you'll have to search for it. So as you can tell, I'm getting kind of familiar with how ASRock lays out their BIOS, so I was very used to navigating to where that was. You will have to kind of search it out the first couple of times. And like I said, for my Intel devices, they're in a completely different place as well. All right, finding your CPU signature for the next parts we do on the miner. So in this particular case, what I need to do. Okay, so now that we're in PuTTY, let's see what we want to do here. cat /proc/CPU info, and this gives you all kinds of good stuff about your system. Well, we're looking for 3 bits of information in particular: the model, CPU family, and the stepping. Okay, so let's go back to our guide, and it will sort this out if you just cut and paste this guy, which I probably should have done, but 6.122.1, this is going to be the microcode that I need. So let's go get it. Here we are. Let's download this guy. Downloads. Into our working directory. There we have it. Now it turns out you can also open this in UFI tool. Yeah, look at that. What does this say? The UFI image. Intel microcode. It's version 36. Same CPU signature. Now let's see other UFI tool. Our original file. 22. So this is definitely a more recent code than this, and for the same processor. Now, it's important to note that there are other motherboards that you can swap processors around, and so if you do that, then you will have to repeat this step with the signature of the CPU that is in the motherboard as you are using it at that moment. Okay, so given that, what is our next step? Oh, great document of wisdom. Download the new MCU. We did that. Open in a UFI tool. We did that. I'm skipping ahead. You can tell that I've read this document before. All right, so we're still on track. Locating the MCU location. Okay, so here you can see hex view on the microcode, right? So if I go into our UFI tool here and I look at, not that one, but this one, the hex view of this microcode. This first line is unique, and it will tell us how to find this section when I open this BIOS file in a hex editor. Say in a hex editor, yes, there are more sophisticated tools. Turns out you don't necessarily need them, so I'm going to open it using this. Okay, so here I'm going to open this file, my original BIOS file. Now I know that I have a copy of this stored in my email, so I'm not going to make a backup of it. Although this, or make a backup copy of it after I make the edit. So that's item number one. Item number two, well, let's do this again. I'm going to open this file, right? So this is my new microcode file. I'm going to Control A, Control C, and now all of this is copied into the buffer. So how big is it? This length is in hex, important to note, 12,400 hex. Okay. Now I'm going to go over here. This line, this is 0002200001720. I'm going to search for that. So let's put this over here. And I'm going to go here, search, find hex values. 0022000000172026. Okay. And search. All right, now this first line should match. As you can see, it does. This tells me this is where I want to start pasting the new microcode. Now I'm going to use the page down, and we're going to go until our length is 12,400. Obviously in hex, so you can see that we're at E, F, and 10, right? So 12, 80, 90, X again, I was fooled. All right. Now this area here is going to padding. So if you might recall, there is padding here. That's what these empty FF means. That's what you're seeing here. That means that they expected to be able to put bigger chunk of microcode in here at some later date. I'm going to hit Control V. And you can see this whole section was just pasted over. I'm going to save this file. Yeah, we'll save it as. Why not? We'll call this hacked. All right. Save it. So now I have my original file. I have my hacked file. I'm going to close the hex editor. I'm going to close this UFI tool. I'm going to close this UFI tool. And we're going to open the one that we just created. BIOS region. Ucode. All right, so now it's version this. It has the right signature, and this should be up to date. And by the way, I'm sorry for not referring back to the guide in that last little bit, but it turns out that was step by step what you want to do. So you might notice that this is coincidentally the same processor. So it's funny that this is actually not the same board, but apparently Intel was very prolific with how many things they put this particular piece of silicon into. I have some NUCs that have it. I have a few different flavors of ASRock motherboard. But next we're going to flash it. So using our HDMI, I'm going to pop the delete key so we enter the BIOS. Should tell us this is a J4105 board, which you can see right there. Going to advanced and CPU configuration. There are no SGX things. So we'll flash the new thing from the thumb drive. That's it. And yes. And go. That done, let's reboot. All right, back in BIOS and checking where we were. Oh, we have all kinds of new stuff. Isn't that cool? Including SGX. Thank you, ASRock customer for life. Much appreciated. It's a good practice to save those new options that just showed up, so we're going to save and exit here. Okay, so now I'm on my Phala node, and one of the things that you want to make sure that you have is the IUcode tool. And so here it says it's available via repository. So what I'm going to do is see if it's installed. I will just do apt. I've been doing this a long time, so I use apt-get a lot. Install IUcode tool. It's already the latest version. Great. So that is in here. Let's see if we already have updated microcode from our reboot a minute ago. So if I do dmessage and I grep for microcode, short answer is yes. Look at this. We've got our revision for hex 36. Very cool. And let's do a cat proc CPU info. Aha, and again, here we go with the microcode at version 36. So, excellent. All of that is good. So let's test our SGX installation here. So let's clear this out, and I'm gonna do something naughty. We're hacking BIOS here, so SGX test. SGX decap driver is not installed. Okay, so that's part of the problem here. This box might not have been updated for a bit in terms of Phala, so I'm gonna go double check what's going on here. So Intel SGX install. It turns out I had the wrong flavor of Ubuntu on this previously, and so now I have a fresh new load of 18.04.05. There does not seem to be. So that is problematic. And the last time I ran into this, well, let's see what happens. As you've probably seen throughout the watching this video, I've edited this together in such a way that some of the dates kind of scramble around, right? I've been working on this for a bit of time, and what has happened is pretty depressing. I have to say, at first this morning I was really dejected because I had figured out that it wasn't going to work. At first I thought it was a problem with Ubuntu 20.04. But that turns out not to be the case. It turns out that the problem is actually in the BIOS even still. So this error message, which I have been Googling and searching around on forums and trying to figure out what this means, is actually right here, right under my nose in the Phala wiki. So that's kind of embarrassing, but the point is this. Your hardware supports flexible launch control, but it's not enabled in BIOS. And you're thinking, but I saw you change the BIOS settings, and that is correct. Reboot your machine, try to enable FLC in BIOS. Guess what? That option isn't there. Alternatively, try updating your BIOS to the latest version or contact your BIOS vendor, which I now have to do yet again. But I'm including this failure here, at least a little bit of it. I have recorded many hours of trying to get this to work, but I've included a couple of minutes of this failure here because I wanted you to see best laid plans still fail sometimes doing what we're doing here. Now, there are ways to hack BIOS options. I have not looked into those yet. I'm probably going to contact ASRock first. They have done right by me. But the reason that I'm going to continue publishing this, and I'm going to show you what I did following this procedure before I started recording things. And what you see here is a J5040 ITX. This is a considerably newer motherboard. And it is a quad-core Pentium Silver. It's not a Celeron. It's got a little bit more juice, 2 gigahertz. And this microcode turns out to be the latest and greatest, but it was not part of this BIOS. And so this was my first contact with ASRock. They agreed to send me a BIOS with those options in it. I took that, I opened it up, I saw the microcode was still too old to get us to our attestation, and I hacked it. So did it work is the question, right? So you're done. You're like, oh, you're keeping me in suspense. What are you doing here? And so the answer is that I am always forgetting to do sudo because I'm a bad Ubuntu citizen, and I always go to root because I'm old. Okay, look, I'm over 50. Just cut me some slack. I have bad habits. But this is the deal. Confidence 1. It's the real deal. You just saw it run here. What is the date? Oh my God, really? All right, today's date. So right now, as of right now, I'm getting Confidence 1 on this motherboard and this microcode. And all I'm waiting to do really is add it into the Phala testnet and figure out what my score is now. I want to get this particular rig scored to figure out if I'm buying more of them or if I'm buying more powerful rigs or whatever. Hopefully you will have this kind of luck, the confidence level 1 kind of luck, and not the I can't load the SGX driver kind of luck because it's not turned on in the BIOS. Next guide I'm going to turn into a video is 100Ks, how to use this archaic black magic instrument to do BIOS alchemy on more stubborn motherboards like Intel NUCs. Be safe out there and don't brick what you got.